What is up, everybody? This is not Shardcast. This is a solo video because Brandon recently put out Ghostbloods Update 1 on Reddit. If you are newer to the fandom, Brandon, for a long time, since like Oathbringer time, would put these basically blog posts, not on his blog, but on Reddit, to update us all on how the book's going. And so I wanted to do a solo video just going through the sucker. I guess I did one of these way back, in Wind and Truth. Brandon didn't do too many of them, and I think I only did one video. Brandon did a lot more in Oathbringer and Rhythm of War times. So we got our first one right here for Ghostbloods, I guess the first Ghostbloods book. And so let's just get right on into it. Hey all, thought I'd stop by and post an update to your new book. I love that. Thanks, Brandon. Which I've been working on diligently these last few months. If you've been following along on the weekly updates, you'll know that I've been making slow and steady progress. Well, last week I passed the 50% mark and hit the midpoint of the first book. It's been a blast to be back on Scadrial, working on the modern era of Mistborn, something I began outlining in 2005, which is that must feel great, to have something that you've wanted to write for 20 years and then you're finally doing that. Wax and Wane was not part of the plan back then. I'm glad I did it though, as it would have been too long a wait otherwise. 20 years. Yeah, that makes sense. The story is following a new recruit into the Ghostbloods. And, well, I don't want to say too much. We've got 3 years until the book comes out. As a reminder, my plan is to write all 3 before the first one is out. There are some things I can tell you though, so I'll put those in the spoiler tag below, which of course we will click. Originally, I had talked about this being about a Necroburst who helped with an apparent Mistborn serial killer. I've moved away from this as a central plot for a couple reasons. First, I feel the story with Bleeder covered this serial killer angle in Era 2, and I don't want to do something similar. Second, Era 2 was able to establish some of the things I wanted this story to introduce, and I feel I can move ahead a little. So while the lead is one of the same characters I've been planning a while, she's going to be involved in something else, originally planned for the second book. Note that the lead is not the Necroburst character, whom I'll make use of a little later. But yes, the space race is still very much the central plot of the trilogy as a whole. If you want more clues as to where I'm going with this, Isles of the Emberdark might have them for you. Oh yeah, and Emberdark's coming literally days away on July 1st. So that's pretty cool. So expect Emberdark reactions. It'll probably be later in July. Because we have an episode on the 6th that will be talking about our Brandon words of Brandon. That sentence was bad. Whatever. I don't care. So Necroburst, you may not remember because, hey, we've never seen that character with that ability set. So that would be a Necrosil misting. So aluminum removes all your metals. Chromium is the external version of that, where you'd touch someone and they'd lose all their metals. And so that's a leecher. A Necroburst uses Necrosil and is like Duralumin, but you use it on someone else. And so way back when, 20 years ago, after Hero of Ages, Brandon did say it was about a Necroburst. More recently, like in the last 10 years, we've got this idea of a Terrace hacker girl. And so I imagine that's what this she is referring to. And so maybe she's a fairing, hard to say, but not the Necroburst. That will be later, I guess. And I'll put a link below to our Era 3 predictions podcast where we go through a lot of the words of Brandon on this. Things have evolved over time, but I was looking back through our words of Brandon on that, and space race, Cold War, that's kind of what I want with the North versus South conflict in Era 3, and so that sounds awesome. Interesting to see what he means by where I'm going with this look at Isles of the Emberdark, so we'll have to see very shortly what he means by that. All right, I'm going to take a break to do some revisions on the book and work on something else you might find exciting. The comprehensive document explaining Malwish, medallions, airships, and the very complicated details of how that all works. The things that are too granular to go in the books. I would like to have this done pretty soon, as I promised to release these mechanics once Lost Metal was out. But I haven't been able to find my original notes document about this, and have to reproduce it from scratch. I've been putting off doing this, as I'm sure the notes file is hiding on my hard drive somewhere. Usually I don't have trouble finding these things, but this one has eluded me. Brandon, that's really relatable. My notes for my writing is terrible. So I believe it. So I'm just going to remake it, let editorial/Arcanists look it over, and get all the fundamental Cosmere science explanations in place before this book is ready for beta reads. So this is kind of interesting because he says he was going to release it when Lost Metal was out, but this paragraph doesn't say anything about like a public release. Like if anything, before this book's ready for beta reads, hard to say if he's doing revisions soon. I know he said in his update videos, different from these. So I don't know. I imagine you're subscribed to Brandon's channel if you're at all listening to this channel, right? But he's been saying, oh, I kind of wanted to get Ghostbloods 1 done August time, but looks like he's going to be, doing some other things in July, as we'll see very shortly. Like beta reads are probably a bit away if he's at the 50% mark and wants to do some revision work on the book. That's interesting. He usually doesn't do revision work before the book's finished. So that's just very interesting. Yeah, not really clear when or if this even comes out publicly. I'm not quite sure what that's going to look like. So we'll just have to see, I guess. I'm traveling extensively next month for my anniversary, then a trip to Spain, then probably a drop by to tour the Avengers set in London, since I've got some friends working on the film. Okay, yes, Brandon, yes, you have many Hollywood connections and things. Very cool. So expect the percentage bar to stay static for a while, but don't be concerned. I'll be using that time to work on the notes document and probably to work a little on the Mistborn screenplay. Don't get too excited. It's not anywhere close to being made. I haven't even resold the rights yet. I merely want to have it ready in case something does happen. Makes sense. Brandon's always said that travel's kind of rough. So, that's fine. As always, thanks for your support and enthusiasm. And I apologize in advance if I'm unable to answer many questions or comments in this thread, as I've got a lot going on. Yes, I imagine he does. I always love Brandon making these. There's things you can criticize about Brandon, even, the Brandon haters. But I don't think anyone can criticize that Brandon is top tier as to like letting everyone know exactly what he's doing and when and progress. Is there anyone better? I don't know, but Brandon's definitely top of that game. So Brandon did reply to one thing, of course, by our friend, Luz Terran Telescope. And yes, I am on old Reddit. I don't like new Reddit on desktop, so take that, guys. Luz Terran Telescope asks, oh, interesting. Once the books are out, do you think you'd be able to talk a bit about the character/plot swaps in more detail? Behind the scenes content like this fascinates me. And Brandon says, so there's a few things going on here. Swap really began to happen in my head somewhere around 2019, 2020, as I realized I didn't want to do a serial killer. I'd already done this, and plus I wanted to shoot for more an 80s spy thriller as opposed to a detective vibe, having done that so much with the series already. That makes a lot of sense. I don't want more procedural detective stuff. I think Cold War spy thriller stuff, that's great. If you watch my lectures, I talk about the difference between a lowercase p plot and an uppercase p plot. The larger scale plot of the series remains the same. Has the same ending to book 3 that was built back in 2005, 2006. By the way, there is a word of Brandon where Brandon said one of the most exciting books that he wanted to write was the last book of Era 3, along with Stormlight 9. He lists those. So, look, I'm hyped. That sounds great. But each book needs its own plot as well. The things that move scene to scene make the book stand on its own and be readable. I started to revise the story in my head over the years to focus on something that would better match the tone of what I wanted. When I sat down to write, I tried them both in outline and was unsurprised to discover that the newer one was more interesting. So I rebuilt in that direction. I can say more once you've read them, though I recognize that's a way off. Most everything I plan to do is still in there, but things have moved around a little, which isn't odd once you start active work on something. Some of what was book 1 becomes part of book 2, and some of what was book 2 becomes book 1. that sort of thing. I think that makes a lot of sense. If he's cutting out the serial killer plot, he's got to adjust things around. I don't know. I'm just very interested to see, you know, what Brandon's going to come up with here. I'm sure glad that he had Era 2 to, you know, set things up for this era, because I can't imagine. Can you imagine going from Era 1, where Southerners are not mentioned like at all? Like it's an annotation thing almost, and like a vague allusion. Like it's almost nothing. Then going to this and there's like, yeah, there's two things. There's a big spy thriller. And I guess that's what he was meaning, right? Where, you know, the first book was going to introduce a lot of these new elements to the world of Scadrial, and now he doesn't need to do that. So that makes a lot of sense to me, and that you need to adjust things around. And I'm pretty excited for Cold War Mistborn with lots of wacky powers and things and high technology. Should be good. I'm excited. So, I mean, that's all we got. So we'll see you all for, I guess, our Words of Brandon on our interview. And then later this month, we have Emberdark reactions. So, you know, go read Emberdark. It'll be out to the backers for the Kickstarter on July 1st. And then to everyone else, I think you can buy the ebook July 10th, July 11th. Oh no, I don't know this off the top of my head. You'll have time before our Emberdark reactions episode. And also in July, we have the Stormlight RPG. And so that will be the thing as well. So that will be pretty cool. So we got lots of stuff to talk about. I'll try and make relatively prompt videos on these sort of updates. I don't know. Sometimes Brandon does some really cool things in updates. I remember, either an Oathbringer or Rhythm of War one, where he gets out the spreadsheet and he like talks about his plottery and stuff. I don't know. I love that stuff. So if there's more of that, we're totally going to talk about it. But otherwise, we will see you all next time. Bye.